What's going on, guys? Today we're back, not on Showdown and not on Reborn. In fact, I apologize for bothering you with this kind of video just because I've already released a video explaining my thoughts on the Greninja suspect test and ban back when the suspect test was actually taking place. And in fact, a lot of the things that I will say in this video, I've already said in that previous video. So I would go watch that one first and then come back to this one. So when I refer to the old video, you'll know what I'm talking about. So it recently came to my attention that this video exists by Verlisify and his thoughts on the Greninja ban. And I just wanted to clear the air on some of the claims he makes about what this Pokemon can and can't do. His claims that are not supported by any kind of damage calcs, any kind of evidence, any kind of discussion from the actual suspect thread. I'm not here to discuss Verlisify's subjective opinions. There's nothing really I can do about that. You can't really discuss that. Like, I don't really care what Verlis thinks about the... I don't care whether he disagrees or agrees with the Greninja ban. I don't care if he thinks the Smogon metagame is balanced or not. I've actually already watched this video through, but now we're going to do some video commentary, and I'm just going to start the video.
Wolfpack Rolls here, and I kind of can't get away with not doing Greninja ban video right now because after doing my Greninja review, I'm going to get asked a lot of questions. There's probably already questions even though I haven't uploaded the video yet. I already know there's questions of what I think of the Greninja ban. I've been asked well over 100 times on Twitter and private messages. I'm trying to respond to many people, but it just takes...
Okay, first of all, I don't blame Verlisify for doing this kind of video. I know I've expressed in the past to my friends and my Facebook community that I don't think Verlisify should be covering Smogon at all. His content is based in, battle spot rules, Nintendo rules, VGC. So he really doesn't have any business covering Smogon, but if his followers are really bugging him that much about it, then fine.
Too much time. So it's easier to do a video discussing my opinion. Now a lot of people will be like, well, stop attacking Smogon. This isn't an attack on Smogon.
Well, I guess it's good to get that disclaimer out of the way early.
Which is already causing concern if it is. And then you also have to look at Smogon's responsibility of this. That they have claimed themselves that they have hundreds of thousands of people. I think it's over 200 or over 300,000 registered youth players in Smogon. Which means that this decision literally affects hundreds of thousands of players, which is a majority of the Pokemon base, which means...
Okay, already I've kind of got a problem. Verlisify is convinced that Smogon has this responsibility to appeal to their entire fan base all the time, and if they did that, nothing would really get done. In fact, Smogon's banning policy caters to only a very small portion of the Smogon community, which is the tournament scene, in order to keep the tournament scene fun, healthy, and competitive. I think if that's the one thing that has stayed consistent throughout Smogon's history, it's the nature of their tournament scene. So if you're unhappy about the ban and you're among like the 200,000 who just kind of play by Smogon rules but aren't really involved in our community, by all means, don't play our rules. We don't really care. The bans and the suspect tests are for the tournament community. So we don't have any kind of responsibility to appeal to you just because you don't like our bans.
That there has to be good reasoning for it, and I disagree with the ban because I don't think the reasoning is there. After doing all this research on Greninja, after seeing it in play, after having used it...
Okay, let's see what he has to say.
That when you think about it, you need to understand why the ban is happening for many things. One,
this is
a
true.
lot of people, because Smogon is so large and you can't control every person, do think that Smogon is official. That they will be confused by thinking, oh, if they ban in Smogon...
Okay, I think Verlisify needs to... He needs to elaborate more on what he means. Like, who is he referring to when he says some people still don't know that Smogon is not official? They've only said it in every single one of their Facebook posts. Like, you have to be really uninformed at this point if you still think that Smogon is the official rules. Like, that's not our fault that you think we're the official rules. It's your fault for not getting informed. And I'm not going to blame you or anything. I'm not going to shout at you. I'm just going to simply explain to you and educate you on the reality. You can choose whether to play our rules or not. The Pokemon Company International doesn't really support a 6v6 singles format. So for people who want to play 6v6 singles competitively, we have this unofficial fan-based community. So, I want some names. I want screenshots of who at this point still thinks that Smogon is official, but whatever. That's not the point of this video.
It's not, usable in Pokemon, or I can't play it with my friends, and then I have to get mad at my friends whenever they use it because they're using a forbidden Pokemon. And that's kind of the ban logic. So when you take a Pokemon...
So you're blaming Smogon for a lack of communication between just two random like friends who want to play Pokemon. Okay.
As iconic as Greninja, that it's already in Smash Bros. That Pokemon put a lot of thought.
Okay, I'm actually just gonna skip through this part of the video because he just keeps talking about like how sentimental Greninja is or whatever, like how iconic he is. You know, we don't care if he's in Smash Bros. Or whatever. That doesn't matter when it comes to a suspect test. And he actually addresses this, but then why did you waste all that time? So
more and more stated, even though Smogon has been doing a good job of like explaining, hey, we're not completely official. But since there's still a large amount of players that think Smogon is official,
large amount of players, very specific. I want to know who. I am in a group of over 30,000 members. It's the largest Pokemon Facebook group, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, I think the administration has done a fine job of educating people on, you know, the differences between the official formats and what Smogon is trying to do and what Smogon is. So when you say a large amount of the player base, like, I imagine you're referring to newer players, then it's their responsibility to get informed. It's not Smogon's responsibility, if anything, to inform them, even though they've been doing a fantastic job. Like, if you look at one of their Facebook posts, like, the actual content of the post is like 3 lines, and then the disclaimer explaining all of the stuff about, like, we're not official is like 3 times longer than it. Like, how clear can we make it?
A lot more care and a lot more effort should be putting into establishing that Smogon has no official...
A lot more care? Are you kidding me? Like, I don't know. At this point, I really do not know how Smogon can make it any clearer. They literally have it in, like, every single one of their Facebook posts. Hey, we don't enforce our rules anywhere except on our servers. We're not official anywhere else. I really just don't know how Smogon can make it clear. Please enlighten us, Verlisify. How can Smogon put even more effort on emphasizing that?
Whatsoever. And I think that just a little more effort could be put into that, just personally, because it would...
Yeah, it's really just never, like, Smogon can never do enough for Verlisify. Even when we've got, like, the disclaimer 3 times as long as the actual content of the post, nope, you just cannot please Verlisify on the fact that Smogon's not official. Even though Smogon has been, like, you can't make it any more crystal clear. But of course, it's Verlisify's job to appeal to his fan base and always have to find a problem with everything Smogon does. Sorry, I got off trail. That's not the point of this video. Then why don't they just communicate on what rule set they're doing, instead of blindly going into a battle without having common ground? Like, you think that'd be the most basic thing, right?
But that's kind of like the main thing, is that Smogon has a lot of influence, that these decisions need to be treated with more care, and that's why
it doesn't matter how much influence we have. I mean,
one, I disagree with it on a mental level.
I already discussed how we don't have a responsibility
animosity towards the Pokemon that is
based on things we do for our tournament scene. Doesn't matter how much influence we have. It's not going to stop us from doing what we've always been doing. If you want to follow us or not, you know, we don't care.
Just for being banned in an unofficial format. That because of Smogon's influence, players will look down on other players over an unofficial decision, and that's just kind of a problem. And one more thing before we talk about
it's a problem, yes, but it's not ours.
Like saying I haven't played Smogon,
it's not our fault that some players are too incompetent to understand even the most basic things. That just because Smogon bans something doesn't mean you shouldn't look down upon it in, like, VGC.
And immediately fills your argument with, like, it's an attack at that point. That you're blinded by just trying to...
And, you know, I don't doubt that, like, here he's discussing how people are saying he doesn't play Smogon. I don't doubt that he plays Smogon, but that's not really...
misrepresent your community by doing so. So
okay, let's just keep listening.
I don't think Greninja deserves the ban at all when you look at it, because it doesn't have the
and here we go.
offenses. It's not a Pokemon that's going to mass sweep. That Greninja has to work hard to do a 2-hit, or to get a...
Okay, it's a little bit harder to do mass sweeps with Greninja than other Pokemon, but, I mean, saying that it doesn't have the pure offenses, like, looking at it on a surface level, which I think Wallace is doing, yeah, it doesn't look as impressive as other Pokemon. You know, 122 speed is really good, but 103 special attack could be better, right? Except, if you refer to my last video, I discussed how, because of Protean, overall, Greninja's virtual special attack stat is about 140, not counting Life Orb. That is not counting Life Orb.
2 KOs on it under its belt. That it takes a lot of effort to make sure Greninja has the right moveset. That's one of the main things about Greninja, is that you have to have 4 moves, you have to have 1 nature, and you have to have 1...
Again, I referred in the last video how Greninja does not have 4 move slot syndrome. I defined 4 move slot syndrome on other Pokemon who actually do have it. Greninja can run anything it wants to, and it's based around the team. Yeah, it's true, Greninja can't run all its coverage moves in 4 slots, but it can do so much in 1 slot for the team, where it can run just the right moveset to patch up holes for the team. Like, I think people are overlooking Greninja's, the support aspect of being an Uber, and I think Greninja fits it almost perfectly.
Set of EVs. But in this theoretical sense that Greninja can counter out everything in the game, that, you know, nothing can counter Greninja.
And before I elaborate more on that, we're going to listen a little bit more.
That's still kind of flawed, because some of those stats, like against Chansey, are under Stealth Rocks, which means advantage was given up at some point to set those rocks and then to get Greninja in.
Okay, Stealth Rocks are incredibly easy to put on and incredibly difficult to have off at all times. Even like the best Smogon players will agree with this. So usually you just have to play around Stealth Rocks and take Stealth Rocks into account for your theoretical damage calculations, because more often than not, even if you're an amazing player, they're probably there at some point in the game, if not most of the game. And, you know, he points out Chansey. Yeah, I think I addressed this in my last video too. I think Chansey is still, like, a pretty decent counter, except Chansey is such a momentum killer in 6v6 singles that it kind of pigeonholes you into this stall-oriented style.
For Greninja to come in, he either has to get the most perfect switch in ever,
or you can use U-turn or Volt Switch.
Or it's coming in after an opponent, after the Pokemon has gone down. So now Greninja is coming in after that person using Greninja is already at a disadvantage. So even Greninja,
not to mention, like, Greninja's base typing is not really that bad at all. There are things it can switch into, like non-stop Fire Blast, non-stop Ice Beam.
Regains ground effectively while taking out strong Pokemon. Sure, it can do a really good job taking out sweepers. It can take out Pokemon that have a lot more potential than it. But that's what the Greninja is good for. It's trying to level that field by going for a 1-for-1. The little more.
Except Greninja isn't 1-for-1, where you can just revenge kill or get chip damage on a switch-in, well, switching, quote-unquote, because Greninja has like 2 in OU, and then you just switch out. There's no cost to bringing Greninja in, or having it on your team.
Okay, so first I have to guess that my opponent is going into a fairy typing, and then I have to...
No, you don't have to guess. Like, later Verlisify is going to explain that, like, Greninja doesn't have the power to, like, 2KO everything, but... Or, like, that you have to predict, except you don't. Okay. Or like he says that only like really frail Pokemon get KO'd by a Greninja. Azumarill has 100 HP and 80 defense. And most of the time that HP stat is going to be maxed out if you're using like an AV set or something. Greninja with only 40 attack EVs, that's all you need. That barely takes any from special attack. OHKO's Azumarill with Gunshot. So you're going to say Azumarill is a frail Pokemon now. Greninja OHKO's it, just straight up, no Stealth Rocks, gone. And like Clefable comes in on Ice Beam. If it's like the bold variant, Ice Beam plus Gunshot, gone. So no, you don't have to predict with Greninja.
% accuracy move, nothing's guaranteed. Also, when you're splitting the EVs, because a lot of people, you know, you have to invest something into attack to make it strong.
Okay.
A lot of people have found like 96 being a good sweet spot.
No, you don't need 96. All you need is 40. I think you need 96 for like low kick, for like Cure and B, but even then.
Dark Pulse or Ice Beam against a frail Pokemon.
No, I think like 40 is the... Yeah, the standard spread's like 40, Naive or Hasty, which barely takes any from special attack. So you only need 40 special attack, 40 attack EVs to make good use of its physical coverage moves, just because it has so much raw power in Protean.
Or that you got a good chance to get Greninja in, that shouldn't be punished. That's decent play.
Except almost every chance that Greninja gets to switch in is a good chance. It's a very low risk, high reward Pokemon in using, and a lot of the times your opponent will only have one check to Greninja's optimal set for your team, and once that check is gone, it's a Greninja sweep. Like Greninja, one of the main arguments against Greninja is that it invalidates balance, because balance relies on using the combination of offensive presence and defensive synergy, and Greninja just annihilates so many really tried and proven balance cores. Like Celadon, you can't use those kinds of teams with Greninja around. You'll get mauled. It creates, I said this in the last video, you either got to use really hyper offense to not give Greninja any momentum, or you got to use really heavy stall in order to take a hit from it. And so yeah, it's true. Greninja is not unstoppable. There are playstyles you can use to stop it, but when it's invalidating this giant concentration of playstyles, like anything from offensive balance to like semi-stall, when Greninja is invalidating that entire range, that makes it unhealthy for a tournament scene, in my opinion. And apparently 82% of the people who qualify to vote.
And it's not even guaranteed that Greninja can show up and not
like something doesn't need to be unstoppable for it to be ban worthy.
To be an excellent Pokemon, it's also a risk to be a very poor Pokemon. That if it doesn't have the right moveset, you know, sometimes Gunk Shot's a risk. If they don't have fairy types, now you hit. Really, you don't.
Now you still hit like everything that gets hit by Hydro Pump and Ice. Water Ice coverage is still extremely good, and you're getting stab on the Ice Beam. So even if your opponent brings in like a Ferrothorn, it's taking a good chunk from that Ice Beam, and each time that Ferrothorn is gonna be whittled down. So even if you don't have like the right moveset to take care of this certain check, like you don't have HP Fire for Ferrothorn, like there's first of all, there's no cost to switching Greninja out because it's not weak to Stealth Rock, and you know the virtual base 140 special attack stat takes a toll after a while if your opponent's Pokemon don't have like the most reliable recovery, which is often the case with like really balanced offensive teams or like bulky offense, which Greninja just runs through. It's not 1-for-1 when you're facing balanced or bulky offense with Greninja. It's often like 3-to-1.
Really get too much on it. Okay, grass type Pokemon. Well, Ice Beam on a higher super effective ice attack is going to be a little better in some cases. You know, there's other options that make Greninja just fall flat sometimes. Or
How?
you can have the right moveset and get 2 or 3 KOs. But that
2 or 3 KOs on one Pokemon, I think that's pretty good grounds for a ban. If you're getting a value of 3 Pokemon from one of yours, and suddenly you're playing a 5-to-3 game, you're telling me that's not overpowered? And also, yeah, you can't run all of Greninja's options in 4 move slots, but like even in the worst case scenario, Greninja provides tons of utility for the rest of the team. I think a lot of people overlook the support aspect of being an Uber, and arguably Greninja fits into both categories of being an offensive Uber and a support Uber, where you can literally just slap it onto any offensive team, no matter how bad it is, without Greninja, and it makes it at least decent because it covers so many holes, it whittles down so many Pokemon at no risk. It even gets U-turn to bring back the momentum if you make a bad play or something. In other words, there's absolutely no opportunity cost or no risk to using Greninja on your team, unlike what Verlisify would have you think.
It's not genuinely destructive.
It's pretty destructive to balance and bulky offense teams, which is like the majority of the ladder, and even more in tournament scenes where you see a lot more of the innovation coming from players. And a lot of the times, like Greninja makes it really risky to use innovative options in tournaments, and that's what makes tournaments exciting sometimes. It's seeing Bengay pull out a Licky Tongue and stall people out with like the untauntable wishes.
So Garchomp using Dragon Claw and Earthquake, it has higher attack. It can get neutral KOs with those moves sometimes, and that's because it has natural stab. It doesn't need that Proteum. So it's like Greninja doesn't even have an ability. The Greninja, its ability is to hit okay on low bases.
Okay. Well, we just showed how okay Greninja's power is. Oko on a Azumarill with 40 attack EVs.
Super effective hits like low kick, Gunk Shot. These are super
Ice Beam KOs Dragonite through multiscale.
That prediction, if the opponent doesn't fall for Greninja.
But Verlisify is over here saying it's okay damage.
The mentality is like this Pokemon's unstoppable because it's a 2-hit.
Does it need to be unstoppable to be unhealthy? We've already discussed this.
Switch in on it. Well, what if the opponent just doesn't fall for that? Now you have some problems going on right there. If, you know, they don't want to switch, like you overpredict, or they just have a stronger Pokemon that naturally takes out Greninja.
And can you give me a list of those Pokemon?
Just not in the position to take.
Please
out
elaborate.
Offensive sweeper. Balanced teams do well against it.
No, this is not true.
Except for that one play that Greninja
if you actually read the suspect thread, you'll find all the damage calcs on all of the common balance cores. Greninja runs over balance completely.
To hundreds of thousands of players, just because Greninja has good coverage, it can balance.
Again, Smogon doesn't have a responsibility to those hundreds of thousands of players.
it doesn't really
to do what it's always been doing,
perfectly, and it just
even
shows
since
how
before it was popular.
that is an opportunist, and you're punishing that. Oh, I just say unjustly that if you look at a lot of Pokemon, you know, Mega Medicham theoretically has no Pokemon that can switch into it safely because it's just so absurd. Now, while
Mega Medicham doesn't have 100 speed, and actually it does have a few switch-ins, namely Mega Sableye and Oras. And even before Oras, like, nobody really had a problem with Mega Medicham because it had no switch-ins. I think Verlisify needs to understand that just because something has no switch-ins doesn't mean it's broken. And just because a Pokemon does have switch-ins doesn't mean it's healthy. A perfect example is, again, I said this in my last video, Hydreigon in Black and White didn't have any switch-ins, just like Greninja. But it's just a combination of really convenient traits that makes Greninja over the top for the tournament scene and for laddering as well, where you want to be consistent. And Greninja just kind of destroys all of that because balance and bulky offense are arguably some of the more consistent styles in Oras right now.
Things from happening, when it's making it impossible to use anything. Well, that's actually one of Greninja's strengths, is that it's so strong against everything. It outclasses everything equally. That it's like
what? Outclassing everything equally? What? I don't know what this man is talking about at this point.
That everything has relatively the same usage. Very few things are like, oh, I can't play because of Greninja. It's more that people are throwing Greninja on its team because it makes sense. One, Greninja's good. You can literally put
it's good, but as I discussed in my last video, using broken elements of the game does not display skill, and that's really not what you want for a tournament scene.
A lot of people are bandwagoning Greninja. They're saying all these things that really don't make sense. Like, in the definition of an Uber, I didn't think a Pokemon that could 1-for-1 maybe get 2 KOs is
1-for-1, Greninja, we discussed before, against balance and bulky offense, some of the more popular styles, Greninja's not 1-for-1.
I've never seen a Greninja.
If you want a more elaborate discussion, go check out the suspect thread, where you'll have people like putting up damage calcs against really common balanced cores that Greninja just completely invalidates.
Because putting it on a team doesn't over-centralize. When it's making it impossible for other Pokemon...
Oh, and also, over-centralization is not... just because something is not over-centralizing does not mean it's not unhealthy.
Could get more play without Greninja, but you weren't seeing those Pokemon getting play before Greninja got Gunk Shot because...
Like, Talonflame is over-centralizing and it's not broken. It's not unhealthy.
Crazy coverage. They super... It's going to win. They do effectively the same thing. It's
like Talonflame invalidates a few Pokemon. Well, and even then, it doesn't really do that, just because you don't not run Mega Venusaur on like your stall team just because Talonflame invalidates it, even though otherwise it's a good addition to your team.
Because now we have it to where a lot of kids are running Greninja, a lot of people are running Greninja, and then it's going to backfire on those people that are playing.
How? If they're not playing Smogon rules, and it doesn't matter. It's
already like a mascot in its own right of Pokemon that it's so loved, and now all of a sudden
it doesn't matter if it's loved. If someday Pikachu somehow becomes overpowered or busted as hell, we're not gonna care that it's the mascot.
That's a huge threat. When you look at the history of Pokemon,
and we don't care that some like 7-year-old is playing Pikachu at a VGC event. Like, that's not our problem. If somebody wants to yell at the kid for using Pikachu, if it's banned to Ubers or something, then that's their problems. Like, we're not associating with them. But of course, Verlisify wants to lump all Smogon players into this stereotype of, like, whenever somebody doesn't play by the rules, all hell breaks loose for them.
If it's going to make people mad. And also, I feel like it does make it to where a lot of people that can kind of see through, it's like, well, the 1-for-1 under perfect play is too strong. Metagame's way out of whack. I think that through all these banning, it's that reverse power creep I've been talking about for a while.
And again, like, I'm not saying that there aren't anti-ban arguments for Greninja. It's just not the points Verlisify is making.
Which doesn't even have...
And it's funny because Verlisify, on his Twitter, he like posted a screenshot of We Came as Roman's post. And like, judging by what like the text of his tweet, he didn't understand what We Came as Romans was talking about at all. Like, he's not even willing to admit, like, even in this video, that Greninja breaks balance. And like, basically what We Came as Romans was saying is that we didn't ban Gothitelle or Kieran B in Black and White because it invalidated stall. So we're not going to ban Greninja in Oras because it invalidates balance and bulky offense. And I don't think Verlisify really understood that, like, We Came as Romans was conceding to that point, because even in this video, he's like trying to make it seem like balance does well against Greninja or that Greninja doesn't just completely overrun balance. or bulky
that in
offense.
Battle Spot, we don't see a lot of Gengar. We don't see any Lucario. Mega
Oh
Evolution,
yeah, and then in this
Gengar.
part of the video,
We
he's
see
like
a
trying
lot
to
of
bring up
Slash,
usage
Rollout,
stats from
Instinct,
Battle
because
Spot to
those are
somehow.
naturally strong Pokemon.
First of all, even
They
like
can balance
Smogon usage stats don't matter when it comes to suspect tests. If something's unhealthy and it's like the 50th, like number 50 in the usage stats, that doesn't matter. You don't have to be number 1 in the usage stats to be broken or unhealthy or for us to suspect test it. Let alone like Battle Spot.
Out that they don't have they're not in every single battle. They don't have the highest possible usage. That they aren't really creating too many centralization issues in that format. So
The lack of centralization isn't a justification to not ban something.
You can make a case that's saying, you know, it's very similar. It's still a single battle format. The same fundamentals, the same.
Okay, and then here we go with Verlisify trying to compare Smogon to Battle Spot. Okay, like the amount of differences between like a Bring 6, pick 3, and then a 6v6. Like, first of all, in Battle Spot, like the 3v3, stall is unviable. Entry hazards are unviable. Certain events, like legendaries, are banned that aren't banned in Smogon. I think he's just under, like, pretty much the similarities go, they're both single formats. And that's as far as it goes. Everything else is different. From the most optimal playstyles to what playstyles are viable in the first place to entry hazards. Like, entry hazards are everything in 6v6 singles, whereas in 3v3 they're rather trivial. And also, like, in Battle Spot, certain Ubers that are banned in Smogon aren't banned. Like, there's so many differences that he's completely ignoring. And I actually don't even know what the purpose is of him trying to equalize Battle Spot singles formats with Smogon, because they're completely different formats. I don't know what he doesn't understand about that.
Mentality, the same team building. You can make his team.
No, it's not the same team building. If I only have to bring 3 Pokemon to every single battle, then, you know, I'm gonna have more emphasis on offensive synergy, regardless of type synergy. Because if I have if I have 4 Pokemon weak to Ice, and I only have to pick 3 of them, then it doesn't matter that I have the huge weakness to Ice, because I'm not bringing all 4 of those Pokemon or 3 Pokemon to every single battle in a bring 3 format. They're not the same. They're like similar as far as like it's singles, and then that's it. Everything else about Battle Spot 3v3 and Smogon 6v6 is so different, and I don't know why he refuses to acknowledge that.
Be successful in Battle Spot, be successful in Smogon.
A team that is successful on Battle Spot
you know, if
has a different dynamic in the 6v6 format. If suddenly you're forced to bring all 6 of the Pokemon that you bring for a pick 3 playstyle, you just don't expect to do well. And also, like, a team that doesn't use entry hazards in 6v6, which is often the case in Battle Spot teams.
You're not going to change your team too much because I can only bring 3. You still want a really balanced team. You want the most balanced team possible. That way your 3 picks have the best chance of countering any of their 3 picks. And
it's ironic because Verlisify is like the most active. He's like the one who advocates the most for like balanced teams. And then like the reality is that Greninja runs through him. Even Weak Him as Romance, who made the anti-ban argument, acknowledges this, and he like quoted, and he like posted a screenshot as a tweet. And he had no idea what he was actually saying, as is evident by this video.
But since in Battle Spot, which we've kind of shown is similar,
it's not. It's like slightly, remotely similar. But there's so many differences that he's downplaying or not really caring to mention.
It's not always going to get the perfect prediction. That this ban is off of perfect predicting. And even then, like in a
not really.
Unbalanced format like Smogon,
there's several ways to use Greninja without predicting and still having it do its job of chip damage or late game sweeps or opening up a sweep for another Pokemon. You know, the support aspect of the Uber that a lot of people are understating.
Abusable power. I think that that's one of the things that needed to be addressed with this. Also, let's look at it like this: Battle Spot 6v6. Ranked Battle Spot 6v6 is a real format, just as real as
what?
Smogon. You say Battle Spot 6v6 doesn't exist, then you're saying Smogon doesn't exist. Sure, it's not
no.
into the game.
Okay, hold on. All right. By saying ranked Battle Spot 6v6, you're implying that there's a ladder for this format. And there is no ladder. Like, he just said it. It's not programmed into the game. I can't go on my 3DS and play Battle Spot 6v6 ranked. I don't get a ranking for it. There's no ladder for it. So no, ranked Battle Spot 6v6 does not exist. You can say, he goes on to say, technically you can apply the Battle Spot 3v3 rules to a 6v6 battle with your friends. Okay, fine, I'm not going to deny that. You technically can do that, but there is no ladder for that format. I do not get ranked for that format, like you do on Pokemon Showdown with Smogon's 6v6 rules. They are not the same. Ranked Battle Spot 6v6 does not exist. There is no ladder for it. You can play the Battle Spot singles rules in a 6v6 format with your buddies over Wi-Fi or over infrared or whatever. You can do that. Yeah, you can. But there is no ranked ladder for Battle Spot 6v6. How hard is this to understand? And it's not equivalent to Smogon. It's not. It's a little bit more similar than 3v3, but like I don't know if he actually like listens to this after he records it before uploading.
Bring 6 Pokemon. Don't pick 3. And it's just as easy as if.
But there's no ladder for that on the 3DS. It's just the 3v3.
You know, these Pokemon are banned. Can't use.
And that's what ranked means, right? You get a ranking on a ladder.
Is a lot more clear. That's like, oh, can you use that team in Battle Spot? Cool. That's Battle Spot ranked. I brought this Pokemon, like, I can bring this Pokemon, you can bring that Pokemon, and it's a lot more coherent than the Smogon rules to describe and to kind of show off, because you have to be like, can't use this, can't use this, can't use this. And I think that that's a...
Okay, that's kind of it's another, like, contradiction, because the whole point of Smogon's rules is to make it as coherent as possible. That's why, like, a lot of people were demanding, like, oh, unban Blaziken. But that's where it gets convoluted. Like, the whole point of Smogon's banning policy is to make it as simple as possible. Instead of saying, this Pokemon with this ability and this moveset is banned, we just ban the Pokemon. This is banned. Period. That's it. It's for simplicity. So, like, if we unbanned... Like, people were saying, like, oh, ban Protean plus Greninja. Like, that's the reason we don't do complex bans. It's exactly what Verlisify pointed out for us. It's like, then Smogon rules will be too complicated. If we just said like, it's a bad precedent to set to say, Blaziken with speed boost and baton pass is banned, but everything else is okay. Like that's instead of just saying Blaziken is banned, period, or Greninja is banned, period. Instead of saying Greninja with Protean plus Gunshot is banned, then that's too convoluted. That's not coherent. That's not something you can look at a glance and understand, somewhat.
Clarity issue that just gets more clouded because of the way that the Greninja ban.
So how is just banning one Pokemon? Like, this is not a complex ban. This is a very simple ban on one Pokemon overall. I don't understand how that's not coherent or how anyone can't easily understand that. As opposed to doing complex bans like the Blaziken nonsense and the non-Protean Greninja nonsense. Or Greninja without Gunk Shot. Suddenly it's gonna be like, oh, you can use Kyogre, but it can't have Water Spout or Stir for Scald or whatever. It can only use HP Water. Like, what? That doesn't make any sense.
You guys took the entire video and could at least understand a little more about Greninja.
Again, I'm sorry for some of the rambling I do in the middle. Hopefully, like, the main points got out. And hopefully you take the time to actually go check out the suspect thread. It's locked now. You can't reply to it. But that is what the discussion actually looks like and what... you should be looking for your information on the Greninja ban and not really this video. And I explained a lot of the things like why, like some of the misconceptions he has, and a lot of things that he's just plain wrong about, like Greninja not having enough power. So yeah, sorry I had to bother you guys about this video. Like, and I'm not trying to bash Verlisify or anything. This isn't about me not liking Verlisify. It's just some of the claims he's making that are just outright wrong, and some of the things that he just completely misses from what the discussion that was already happening on the suspect thread that I don't think he actually took the time to read. Or if he did, well, he did read it, but I don't think a lot of the main points got through his head. Like, again, I said, like, he tweeted "We came as Romans" post and then probably understood none of it. So that's all I have for this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Hopefully today I'm going to get to upload some actual content instead of this garbage. Okay, so when I was recording this, I completely glossed over a very important point, like a very important point in the video. He actually says that he's happy about Smogon banning Greninja because it'll turn people away from Smogon. I just think that's such an incredible statement. It reveals his immense hypocrisy. In fact, I'm actually going to go back and play that for you guys.
Banning it than solving it. I'm actually for the ban in the way that it's going to piss a lot of people off. A lot of people are going to be like, well, I love Greninja too much to play, to like just not be able to use my favorite Pokemon. I'm going to leave Smogon. I'm okay if it's going to make people mad. And also,
I don't know why that's necessary. Like, the rest of this video was completely bearable from the standpoint of having a discussion, but of course, Verlisify always has to just twist the knife by adding stuff like that. Like, what's the point of just having that foul statement about Smogon? How is that any different than all the people hating on you for your opinion? How is it any different? So suddenly it's okay to say, I hope that Smogon goes into ruin because of this ban. I hope people start to turn away from Smogon because of this, but it's not okay to criticize your opinion. You know, I've never understood that at all. And the very last point I want to make is that you guys don't know how good the Pokemon community has it. The competitive Pokemon community has it so good to have Smogon even exist as a viable competitive alternative to the official Pokemon Company VGC format. You know, I have some friends who are in the competitive Yu-Gi-Oh scene, and I hear about this all the time. Whatever Konami says goes. Even if they make a bullshit ban or they don't ban certain bullshit, and no matter how many good qualified players point it out, yeah, whatever Konami says goes, and if you don't like it, if you don't play by their format, you're not considered competitive. So it is the one format. You don't have a viable alternative. So just even if you don't like Smogon for whatever reason, if you're on Verlisify's side in this issue, just be grateful you have the choice between Smogon and VGC, and that you can play either and still be considered competitive. And so when I see people like Verlisify make these kinds of unnecessary passive-aggressive videos on a format they don't have to play, the option is just there and they're really not grateful for it. Yeah, it just irritates me to no end. Like, why is that necessary? Why does Verlisify feel the need to find fault in everything that Smogon does, no matter how trivial? So yeah, that's it. I'm gone this time for good.